look outside mainstream education, and look at how your planet is set up. Look at it. Washington DC, not part of the United States of America. The Crown of London, not part of the United Kingdom. Vatican, not part of the EU. But one is the financial centre, one is the war centre, and one is the religious spiritual centre. This is how your planet is governed. This is how it is set up. And the politicians who are coming into power, as I say, they're either taught in the mainstream, don't know this stuff, which is just a fact. You can't argue with the facts I'm presenting here. This is how the world is. Or they are in the pockets of these people. Hey guys, so it's election time in Tanzania, and it's made me want to talk about, just quickly, about politics. And things are getting a little heated and emotional here with people who are voting for, the two rival parties. And I mean, I've been in town today, and it's getting very heated in there. The armed police are out in force. They opened the car door, jumping on the car. It's causing a lot of disruption. But the thing is, I know where they're all coming from and why they're all excited. And the problem you have is there's two rival parties marching in town, so eventually they're going to meet and there's going to be trouble. That's why the armed police are out, as I say. So they're excited because they want change. Most people want change on this planet. Most people. And this is their excitement, their attachment to these political leaders, and what they've said is they're like, yeah, this is change. This is time for change, and we can do this. And that's great that people get behind that and they believe that. But I hate to be cynical, even for Western people who are getting excited about people like Corbyn coming in the UK, believing change is coming. You need to understand your system that you live in. You've got to take a step back away from the mainstream media, which is exciting you, away from all mainstream media, and do some study. Because let me put it in the way of a metaphor. If you take a supermarket like Tesco, Asda, Walmart, wherever you are in the world, and you change the manager of that supermarket, excuse me, I'm on the back end of being sick still. You change the manager of that supermarket, just of that store, say one big supermarket. That manager will not determine how much he or she or their staff are going to get paid, for example. They will not determine which items they will stock. They might determine how much stock they'll bring in, but they won't choose which brands they're going to put in there. They won't decide the layout of the shop. They won't decide pricing unless there's like a special offer. Excuse me. So this is what happens in politics, and it's because people are not educated about the systems they live in. So I'm more clued up on England because it's where I'm from, but I know this is the same in many other countries. Every country actually, but I mean the system they have in the UK is the same in America, for example. So what I'm getting at here is the system you live in is governed by a central bank, the central banking system. And every central bank on the planet, including the one of the country I'm in now, is owned or controlled by a family and their counterparts, so the members, other families within their dynasty. And that family is the Rothschild family. They own and control it. Now, I've put in another video, I've put links to this before, of how they gained control of the Bank of England, how they created the Federal Reserve, which is the money printing house for America, and the Bank of England is the one for England as well. So they are determining the economy. They are determining economics. This is a private family. They are, if you like, Tesco, and the politician is the change of manager. That's it. You're not going to get the change you want by changing the manager within something. If you want to completely change that supermarket, someone needs to take over the supermarket and change it that way. Someone needs to take over the central banking system and change it that way. This is just how it is. This is just how the world is set up at the moment. And for those of you in the UK who are getting behind these politicians, as I say, I'm more educated and clued up on the UK because I'm from there, but I'll give you an example. In the very centre of London, you have a thing which we call the Crown. In the City of London, the Crown. Now, the Crown is a privately owned sector of London. It's not governed by UK law, it's not part of the United Kingdom, and it's owned by the Rothschild banking dynasty. And it's where the financial institutions are based, all of the banks, etc., are based inside that area. They are the ones in control. That is the true management of the country, is the Crown. That is what's determining everything. Money decides everything. We know this. We're in a system which is built around the economy of money. Money determines it all. If you want to put it back into the metaphor, that part of it is the big boss of the Tesco or the Walmart. And when they elect prime ministers and people in, they still have to answer to that big boss because they are still governing economics. They are still governing what's spent on what. And these people who have those banks also have a lot of other things like broadcasting houses. They own nearly all of the broadcasting on the planet. They have other things as well, like large corporations, arms companies, things to this nature. And as I've said, every central bank bar 3 on the planet, which is North Korea, Iran and Cuba, are owned and controlled by these people. So the only way to bring about your change is not to elect in another politician, unless the politician you elect in tells you about the central banking system, unless they tell you that the centre of London, for example, is not governed or part of the UK, it's not part of UK law, it's not governed by the same laws or anything like that, it is independent. Just as Washington DC is independent of America, just as Vatican is independent of Europe. These are entities that are controlling things on the planet. And it's set up that way. It's set up correctly so as they can do that and remain elite and in control. So politics might be full of people who are well-meaning, but until one of them stands up, until someone like Corbyn stands up and says, you know what, unfortunately, humanity in the UK has gotten itself to a point where we are enslaved by a central banking system which is privately owned. And we need to overhaul that. It's going to take colossal change. It's going to take massive changes for everybody. It's going to take shifts, and it's going to take some people to give up some things. It's going to take some people to take on new responsibilities. But until we find change, the only way to do it is to change the corrupt central banking system. My memory card filled up. I really need to invest in some, in a bigger memory card, I think, or in some other memory cards. So, I was saying, until a politician stands up and says, I can't change anything because I am just the manager of an entity beyond me, which is the central banking system, then you're not going to find change that most of the planet is yearning for. And when you look at it, they're yearning and they're calling out to politicians to do it, and no politicians are speaking about the central banking system because some of them just see it as how it is. They are not creative enough to say, let's try and build some new systems. And others are already in the pockets of these people. So politics is ultimately like changing the manager in a supermarket. You're not going to be able to ask that manager to change salaries or change which products you have, or to even choose a new department being built on your supermarket. That manager's still got to then go and answer to the person who's providing that supermarket with the money, the big bosses. Yeah. And as I say, Central London, the Crown, is independent of the UK. How many people know that? Why is it not taught in school? Because it's imperative to the people who control the economic system and in turn control politics and control the economy and all manners of merchandising and corporations and trades and industry below there, even down to the degree of the military-industrial complex, because if you own the arms company, you control what the military's got. It's as simple as that. So if you take away the head of the snake, then you can bring that change about. But until then, all these protests are a waste of time. What you're saying is, this system's not right, but I want you to tweak it to be better for me for now. But in future, the rest of our ancestors to come, our children's children and children's children's children, are still all going to be living inside a controlled and manipulated central banking system, because no one took the time to try and change that. And when a politician stands up and says, yeah, it's time to shift, it's time to change the central banking system, I'll believe that that politician is either good enough and educated enough to rule us, or I'll believe that they are not in the pockets of the elite and their societies which bind them all together. Because this is the problem that you find on the planet. And it's not like leaders haven't warned you about this. Leaders have tried to shut down central banking systems and they were assassinated. JFK. He tried to shut down the Federal Reserve. It would be exactly the same if Jeremy Corbyn came into power, tried to shut down the Bank of England so as it was more just and fair, and he was assassinated. It's exactly the same thing. But people don't know that that's what was the cause of this problem. People don't know that someone like JFK tried to shut down the Federal Reserve and the importance of that, because they're not taught it, and they won't look outside of mainstream education to be taught. Look outside mainstream education and look at how your planet is set up. Look at it. Washington DC, not part of the United States of America. The Crown of London, not part of the United Kingdom. Vatican, not part of the EU. But one is the financial centre, one is the war centre, and one is the religious spiritual centre. This is how your planet is governed. This is how it is set up. And the politicians who are coming into power, as I say, they're either taught in the mainstream, don't know this stuff, which is just a fact. You can't argue with the facts I'm presenting here. This is how the world is. Or they are in the pockets of these people because they are involved with their societies which bond them all together. Which is why you only ever see millionaires from high-class education becoming the Prime Minister in the UK, for example. So you don't see lay people doing it. And when a lay person does finally come in, they tend to be controlled. As I pointed out with Mr. Corbyn, the fact that Fabian puppets have played a little puppet show to get people to buy into him shows me that he's another one of them, quite plain and simple. And would you believe he's trying to gear them towards the socialist agenda, which is great. Socialism works, sharing works, but not if the people bringing in the socialist agenda are doing it because they're terrified that they're going to lose control of their central banking system, which is based on capitalism, so they lose their elitism. So what they need to do, they have this system which people are finding out the truth about, so they need to create a new system that the people say, yeah, we brought in this new system, but all along they brought it in. So in 10, 20, 30 years' time, because the lay person are not organised like they are, then they just fall. They just end up back in control, and people say, oh, well, that never worked either. Because people are not organised and people are not educated. They always look beyond themselves for someone else to do it. The government needs to govern us. Well, I think it's high time the general public started coming together and creating its own groups and spokespersons and demand that we have an opportunity to have public groups of people that are allowed to go into government and say, this is what we want to speak about in the House of Commons on television today. We want to talk about the Rothschild dynasty's central banking system and how it manipulates and strangles people in the UK and all over the world from the resources they require. When there are families on the planet with 15% of their wealth can end world hunger, you can't argue with it that what I'm saying is correct. That's exactly how it should be. So we should start creating groups, independent of government groups, and then when we start creating them, but not ones fueled by hatred, fear and racism, ones fueled by truth, ones fueled by a want for equality, and ones fueled by love, and then demand it. We have power in people. People can demand that. They can form a group and say, we speak on behalf of the public. We have social media, we have web capabilities. We can even start making websites where people vote for what goes on in their country live on the website. We can do that. so we can actually make it about what the people want. We can make it a true democracy based on equality, based on socialism. But until that happens, until new systems are created, and I'm not saying I have the answers to them, but new systems can be created, and until they are, you're stuck as a slave to the central banking system, because they can always determine how much money you have. And if they take over the socialism movement, they will always, again, determine what is going on within the system. But they're running it from the shadows. Do some research, guys, yeah? Do some study. These guys, they don't have your best interests at heart. And politicians are either not educated, or they're educated in the mainstream, so don't even know things like the Crown of London is not part of the UK. Or the other thing is that they're with them, because we have these super wealthy persons running in Parliament who are all from the same private schools and are all involved in the same societies and social circles. So you're never going to get a layperson in charge. Never ever. Unless we form, possibly as one way, to form separate groups away from the government, and then to demand for that group's voice to be heard as a voice for the people. Because at the moment, the political parties in the UK are not a voice for the people. They are not. And they never speak for the people. They speak for the agendas of the elite. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I have very strong feelings on politics. Predominantly, sorry, something flying. Predominantly that it's a pantomime for the masses and provides the illusion of choice. And I said this to someone the other day: if I lay 20 books out in front of you and you choose one, you walk away thinking you had a good choice, but I knew you would choose one of the 20. So, okay, bye guys.
And they call it democracy. And they call it democracy.